The pandemic forced countless programs and events to move online. Death cafes were no exception. At these non-profit gatherings, people, often strangers, meet to share their honest thoughts on death and dying without judgment or an agenda. Anyone can host a death cafe by following the principles laid out on the Death Cafe website. John Underwood created the Death Cafe concept in 2011 to help people make the most of their finite lives. In-person death cafes are often hosted at libraries, bookstores, or coffee shops. But now there are hundreds of virtual meetings you can join from around the world. This year marks Death Cafe's 11th birthday. To celebrate, we asked a few hosts to share how their experience with online death cafes changed their perception of death cafes in general. We wanted to hear about the cost and benefits of hosting virtual rather than in-person events. Here are a few of their stories.
Hi, my name is Jackie Folio. I'm talking to you from my favorite cemetery here in Denver, Colorado. I am a hospice social worker and occasional co-facilitator of the Denver Death Cafe. And the topic of virtual death cafes, I think first and foremost, I am just so grateful that we have this option because it has been such an amazing way to stay connected when things were locked down and beyond. You know, we can still meet safely, and people who may not be able to attend otherwise can get there. So people who might just be really busy, people who are caregivers, people who live in other places. And that's been one really cool thing, is that we've had people attend from all over the US and also other places in the world. So it's been really amazing to have perspectives from all over and just so many kinds of people. I think as far as downsides, primarily for me, it's the energy's not the same on Zoom as it is in person. And I really do miss connecting with people in that way. It just feels different. Another thing being that I know a lot of us are pretty burnt out on Zoom and video calls. I spend a lot of time on those for work and elsewhere in my life. And so I feel like I actually don't attend as much as I used to because I just don't always have the energy for another video thing. So that's been kind of a bummer. My hope is that, you know, in the future we can do kind of hybrid, maybe one of each, or, you know, figure out something that works for everybody. I just am so grateful that we've been able to continue meeting through all this because these conversations are so important. And especially now that it feels like we are surrounded by death, even more so than before, it's just so important. And I'm so glad that we've been able to keep connecting this last couple of years. If you haven't been to a cafe yet, please attend. We would love to have you here at the Denver Death Cafe. And thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Glynis German and I'm founder of the Mallorca Death Cafe, which is based in the Balearic Islands, Spain. I also am part of a wide network of death cafes all across the country and reaching as far as Latin America. I started the Death Cafe movement here in Mallorca in 2015, and of course in those days they were in person and they were in various venues around the island. Obviously, we all know what happened in 2020. We immediately took our network of death cafes online, and since the easing of lockdown restrictions, obviously we have been able to go back in-person death cafes, but we've continued offering some of our death cafes which were designed to gather people virtually because we were all in different places. How has my perception of death cafes changed? Not a great deal, because I love the Death Cafe movement. I find that the experience of a death cafe where one connects heart with mind and is open and practicing deep listening, whether that's virtually or whether that's in person, it's a wonderful, inspiring and uplifting experience. So that hasn't changed at all. A plus virtually is, of course, we can connect with people from all around the world, and I facilitate an international death cafe in English, as well as one for health professionals in Spanish, and we attract people from all over the country, all over the world, and that allows us to look at the whole concept of death and taboos in other cultures and in other societies. It's fascinating, but coming to a death cafe is also fascinating and completely recommended. Thank you very much.
I'm Caroline, and I had thanatophobia for the first half of my life. So I realised early on that nobody wanted to talk about death. I was forced to find my own answers in order to heal, and that involved a lifelong exploration around death. When I first heard about the death cafes, I got immediately involved, and for the last 6 years I've been running my own event. When the pandemic started, we took the events online, and this new global reach enabled me to start a tiny little subgroup within my death cafe exclusively for people who suffer from thanatophobia, otherwise known as death anxiety. These people desperately need safe places in which they can talk about death as part of their recovery. Eventually the group grew, and we moved out of the Death Cafe and created a separate monthly event called a Thanatophobia Cafe, similar to a Death Cafe, but exclusively for people suffering with this phobia.
Hello, my name is Noelia. I live in Malaga, and I've been facilitating death cafes for the last 2 years. In fact, I started facilitating death cafes, and only when the pandemic was over, I could start facilitating face-to-face death cafes. The two advantages I can see with the death cafes, with the online death cafes, is that you get to gather people from all over the world, literally, and also you reach people when physically it's impossible to do it. Having said that, I would never change the possibility to attend a face-to-face death cafe for an online death cafe. For me, the touch, the hugs, the energy that the group creates, the looking into the eyes straightforward, directly, without any screen in between, for me has no price. So that's my experience and my feeling. Thank you very much, and long life to the death cafes.
If you're interested in attending an in-person or online death cafe, check out the Find a Death Cafe page to search for upcoming events. From personal experience, I can say that they feature enlightening and meaningful discussions. Everyone involved with Death Cafe has been excited to see how it has grown in the past 11 years, with many more years to come. A big thanks to the Death Cafe patrons whose support has made every birthday possible. If you'd like to become a patron and help continue the conversation about death, check out the Patreon page linked in the video description. The pandemic has been a potent reminder that we will all die someday. We can't escape our own mortality, but we can seek comfort and community from our fellow human beings. As Death Cafe's founder John Underwood once said, "Time is different when you know you're dying. Time matters. Minutes matter. Time is not to be wasted. Sometime, soon, there will be no more time."